So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get some value out of it. But it's something I played around with for 4 years, and I encourage you to play around with it too, and take my five and come up with your own five characteristics that drive you day in and day out. Something that challenges you, something that you want to lean into, or something that you can lean on in the future. So these five characteristics, like I said, I played around with my own, but these are, I I I dove deep into this for quite a while. So hopefully they offer value to you. Number one, a strong belief in conquest. And so I'm very careful about the wording in these five. I encourage you to play around with your own wording to create your own individual brilliance, but hopefully these will offer value to you as well. The reason why I use the word conquest is a deep-rooted term in all of us, going back 2,000 years, 3,000 years, years and years and years from when we used to tell stories and there was no writing. Conquest, and even still today, when that word is used, it draws a particular image. It draws an image of story. It draws a deeper image of something that is very important. Conquest is, yes, it's winning. It's it's persistence. It's grit. Like fall down 7 times, get up 8, right? Or like Jim Watkins said, a river cuts through rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. So it speaks to that. But it's this deep-rooted belief in winning, in strong drive, and in moving through obstacles and getting to a winning spot. So that's the reason why I use that. But in order to be brilliant, we have to have something we have to be moving toward. And the deeper and the stronger rooted, the deeper rooted that is within us, the harder it is to get there, the more challenging it is, the more it draws from us from within inside, the more of a conquest it is, and the more challenging it is. And so that's number one, a strong belief in conquest. Number two, consonant and integrated principles. Now, when I use that word consonant, I use that very particularly, and that's because that means when things are like in accord or when they're in harmony. When I talk about integrated principles, you can actually picture that. You can actually see how they might correlate and how they might work together. But principles are something from which you stand, something strong, something that you're not willing to budge. Now, there are timeless principles, and I encourage you, if you don't have some in your life, I encourage you to dig into that a little bit and use some timeless principles. Like, for example, begin with the end in mind. That's a timeless principle that you can use day in and day out. Now, I don't want to give principle to you. You need to pull and draw from your own. But that's a great example of how time, that doesn't change. It's always going to be that way. If you take a project and you begin with the end in mind and you look toward the end and then move backward and start from the beginning, it's a great way to go. So hopefully that'll help you with what a principle is, something that you really strongly stand on that you're not really willing to budge on. That's number two. Number three, extraordinary values. Now, if you don't have any values, I encourage you to figure out what your values are. And there are many ways to do that. I'm not going to go through that in this talk today. But having values, what you move toward and what you move away from, is super important in life. It's what we're drawn toward. It's what we move away from. This is a super important exercise to do. But I want to encourage you not to just have values. I want to encourage you to have extraordinary values. Things that you review day in and day out, things that you look at, that you spend time with, that you chew on, that you digest, that you really live into day in and day out. Having extraordinary values is something you can carry with you. It allows you to maneuver through your day with confidence and strength. So I encourage you to have extraordinary values. That was number three. Number four, simple operations. Simplicity. So all those shiny objects get out of there. they get there. And sometimes we chase them. We call it squirrel chasing also. I've heard it called and used that term before. And it's so easy to do that, especially as an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, it's so easy to chase some squirrels. You see a new product or you see something new, or you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. Many of us have a variety of interests. But the key is, even if you do, search those kinds of things and you learn a little bit here and you learn a little bit there, maybe you're a learner like me, and you like to learn those kinds of things and you like different types of input, that's awesome. But when you get your operations, when you get them in place, what are your daily operations? What are your algorithms? Those types of things, whether it be in business or in your personal life, in your mind. Number 4 is simple operations. Habit stacking. What are you doing daily? Those types of things. Simple operations with meticulously quantified tensegrity for growth and precise accuracy and precision. I'm going to talk through this for a minute. So, like I said, I'm hoping this is going to offer you some value. So it wasn't going to be easy. Simple operations with meticulously quantified tensegrity for growth and precise accuracy. Meticulous, I'm sure most of you know what meticulous is. Quantified tensegrity. I say quantified because if you're not measuring things, what gets measured gets done. So you have to have some kind of measurement in your life toward that thing that you're trying to conquer. If you're not measuring yourself, then you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, then it's difficult to move toward it. So it's that measurement of clarity. It's a measurement of, I'm here and this is how far I need to go, or I need that 1 degree of change in my life. So things must be quantified. What gets measured gets done. Tensegrity is fascinating. And the reason why I say tensegrity for growth is because tensegrity is it's like tug and pull. It's when there's a little bit of pressure, when you're tugging and pulling, but the structure is also, it's integrated and it's solid. It's used in engineering, and it's a fascinating term. So I don't usually recommend something like this, but I actually recommend that you Google it, because it might offer you some value. It might teach you something. It's not a very commonly used term. So I'm guessing you probably haven't heard it before, but maybe you have. So tensegrity, we need that tug and pull. So we got to have a little pressure on us. So we need a little pressure in order to grow. If we stay complacent, complacency is my enemy. It just is. I will never be a complacent person. And so I put myself in the area of pressure sometimes in order to grow myself. And I encourage you to do the same thing with mitigated risk. So use that tug and pull, use that pressure to be solid in who you are, but to grow in who you are. And the reason why I say precise accuracy is because you can lean your ladder on the wrong wall. Precision is a measurement. And oftentimes a target will be used for that, like an arrow target. But it's a fascinating topic. There's a difference between accuracy and precision, a difference between accuracy and precision. I encourage you to look into the differences between those two. Here's number 5, because I don't want to go too long. Hopefully you're gaining something from this. Synergistic behaviors that create top-notch attitudes and beliefs. Now, the reason why I say synergy is because things must not only correlate, and they must be consonant, and they must be integrated, but they have to work synergistically. So if you had them mapped out, for example, they must work together. The reasons why we have conflict in life a lot of times is because one doesn't match the other. So your beliefs might not match your principles, which might not match your values. And hopefully you can see that in your mind as I talk about that. If you had them laid out and you knew what those were, you would actually be able to map them and find out if they actually work synergistically. But if they don't work synergistically, there may be conflicts in your life that you can actually improve and you can remove. Oftentimes, That's what they talk about in psychology. Not in that particular way, but that's one example. So synergistic behaviors, and there's a great test called DISC. If you haven't heard us talk about it in some of the interviews, it's been brought up a number of times. DISC. I encourage you to Google that and take that test, because that talks about your behaviors, the ones you lean toward, and that's a fantastic assessment that could offer you a lot of value. So those synergistic behaviors, the things that work together to create top-notch attitudes, that's a mental mindset right there. Mental mindset, attitudes and beliefs. Beliefs are the core of everything that we do. We did an exercise in the course that I was doing on beliefs. And it's fascinating when you begin to learn about who you are and what your true beliefs are, not given to you by someone else, but what you come up with on your own today through all of the from the aggregate of experiences that you've had in your life. I know that was some heavy stuff, guys, but sometimes it's good to have some heavy stuff. You don't have to take my characteristics. If they do offer you some value, that's awesome. That's what this is all about. If they haven't offered you some value, play with those a little bit and come up with your own characteristics. Come up with something that creates your own individual brilliance. I want to dare you to be brilliant. Thanks for joining me today. Live lightly, shine brightly, my friends, and have a phenomenal day. Peace.